Welcome back to 4K Kings. My name is Matt, and today Russ and I are going through our entire Criterion collection. It's the month of November where Criterion is 50% off at Barnes & Noble and discounted at other retailers as well. So we thought we would go through our entire collection and share with you all every single last classy Criterion edition we own. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. First up on the list is Terry Gilliam's The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. This is a favorite of mine from my childhood. It's a little bit of a children's fairy tale fantasy adventure that has that kind of twisted Terry Gilliam spin on it. It's really not for everyone, and even when I watched it as a kid, I kind of felt a little put off by it, but there was a lot of things that I really did enjoy about it, and I was happy when Criterion decided to put this out in 4K. I had an opportunity to revisit this. I shared it with my family. They fell asleep in 10 minutes.
But what do you expect?
But maybe one day soon, I'll get to watch this classic in its entirety. Next up for the A's, and one of my favorite directors, Alejandro Inarritu, is Amores Perros. It is the first of 3 films in his trilogy of death. He followed up this with 21 Grams and followed up that with Babel. And this is an outstanding release that I'm really excited that Criterion put out a few years back. I would really love to see Criterion release 21 Grams. It's one of my favorite films of all time. This is very similar to 21 Grams and Babel, that there are multiple stories that all connect in some way throughout the film. This has that same gut punch as his other films in that era, not maybe as polished as things like Birdman and The Revenant. This is definitely worth visiting if you have not seen this before.
The Terrence Malick masterpiece Badlands. Come on, Criterion, where is the 4K? Barry Bonds. Before sunrise, before sunset, and before midnight. Belle de Jour. The Coen brothers' debut, Blood Simple. Dennis Quaid's Blow Me.
Blow me!
Up next for B's is Brian De Palma's Blowout. Criterion put this out in 4K about 2 years ago, and I had not seen it before. I was really excited to check this out once I saw that announcement. It was a movie that I had not even heard of at the time. I was kind of excited to see that this was a John Travolta film that also starred Nancy Allen of RoboCop fame, as well as John Lithgow, whom I'm also a big fan. We've done a full review on this film, and I've done a deep dive on my thoughts and why I loved it as well as Russ. This is a classic Brian De Palma film. There's a Hitchcockian sort of feel to it. It's an excellent movie about the art of making movies in a way as well. I love this art. I think this is excellent. This isn't any different from the Blu-ray release that had come out, so if you own the Blu-ray, you're basically getting the same package, but I had never seen it before and I had never owned it at the time, so I'm extremely happy to own Blowout.
Is that right?
Dennis Hopper just being himself.
Next up for B's is Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket. This is the only Wes Anderson film that I actually own on Blu-ray, and I picked this up once Criterion had announced it. This is his debut feature. This is a really cute, quaint, sweet film, and you can really see what Wes Anderson is capable of when he is kind of working within a very small budget and also a lot of different constraints, that you can still feel his quirkiness coming through, his comedy, that energy that he likes to employ in most of his films. I do own some Wes Anderson films on DVD. They still haven't put any 4K Wes Anderson titles out yet. Until then, I'm gonna be happy to own Bottle Rocket.
The Breakfast Club. Breathless. The Brood.
Next up on the list for C is Criterion's very first 4K release, and that is Citizen Kane. Another title that I had never seen before, and I was compelled to buy this since it not only was Criterion's first release in 4K, but also a title that has been known throughout history as being one of the greatest films, if not the greatest film of all time. So I had to see if this movie lived up to the hype, and definitely picked this up right away, day one purchase. It's an outstanding looking film from a 4K perspective. I was blown away by how gorgeous this looks in 4K. It's an outstanding film as well. I was not let down by this whatsoever. It's a really awesome digipack package with a slipcase, and then it opens like this with all the letters on the inside, a booklet, and it folds out in this manner with rosebud on the inside. Really nice booklet, and then all the different pictures of Orson Welles inside. I never know how to fold these things back together. It's an outstanding film, an outstanding release, and if you don't own this, I don't know why.
Cooley High.
Next up for C's is David Cronenberg's Crash.
You coming?
A film I had never seen before prior to picking this up blindly. The last Criterion 50% off sale. I'm a big Cronenberg fan, and I had also just watched Videodrome not that long ago, and it compelled me to try to check out Crash. This was a wild film, really different from other Cronenberg films I've seen, but it was still excellent. It still had that same vibe. It's very disturbing, very sexual, not so much body horror that you're used to with Cronenberg. This has been released in 4K in other markets, but it has not been released by Criterion yet. This is only the Blu-ray. As it says here, one of the most provocative films of the 1990s, which I couldn't agree more. If you haven't checked out Crash and you've seen a lot of other Cronenberg films and you've somehow missed this one, I highly recommend it.
Dazed and Confused in 4K.
Next up for D is one of two Guillermo del Toro films I own, and that is The Devil's Backbone. Another Criterion debut. We talked about Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket and Alejandro Inarritu's Amores Perros. This is Guillermo del Toro's first film. Similar to some of those other ones, you can see how this filmmaker is still very raw and is still trying to figure out different ideas and his style given the budget that he has, but it's really effective. And if you've seen any Guillermo del Toro films before, but not this one, I highly recommend giving this one a try.
Spike Lee's masterpiece, Do the Right Thing. Adam McKay's Don't Look Now. Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill. Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Bring it on out! Bring it on out!
David Lynch's The Elephant Man. A little slice of film noir, Elevator to the Gallows. Eraserhead.
Next up for E is one of my newest favorite films, and that is Exotica. Another film I hadn't heard of before until Criterion announced it, and after I read the synopsis and saw some of the actors involved, I decided to check it out, and I was blown away. I covered this before in one of my top 5 Criterion releases that I was recommending to everyone at the last sale, and if you didn't listen to me then, please listen to me now. This is an excellent independent film from the 90s that is very provocative, it's very sensual, it's very intriguing, you could call it even a thriller. It's puzzle-like in nature where certain pieces just slowly fall into place until by the end of the film you finally understand everything that has been going on and all the different connections with all the different characters. It's got a great payoff. It's got a ton of rewatch value, which is why I love it so much. Mia Kirshner, and you've got Bruce Greenwood in an Adam Egoyan film. He's had a lot of other great films as well, but for my money, this one is his best.
A Face in the Crowd. One of my top 10 favorite films of all time, 5 easy pieces. The Friends of Eddie Coyle. Terry Zwigoff's Ghost World. The Graduate. Matt's wife introduced me to this.
Next up in the collection for the letter I is Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. Released exclusively on Netflix and then brought right out on the Criterion. This film was over 3 hours long, and even though it took me 2 sittings to get through, I really did enjoy it. I was really excited to pick this up on Criterion. Again, this is another great film by Martin Scorsese. It's not maybe considered one of his greatest, but it's definitely a great film within his catalog. A lot of great performances, a little bit of a long runtime, but there's a lot of great features on here as well. It's an excellent transfer. I was hoping maybe one day we'll see this in 4K, but for now I'm pretty good with my Blu-ray. Again, this is from really awesome digipack packaging. You've got these sort of brushstroke portraits of all the different characters. You have a nice booklet on the inside. I heard you paint houses. Again, I'm never really sure. Maybe someone out there can tell me why or what the rhyme or reason is for the different types of packaging Criterion chooses to use for digipacks, regulars, and other. But this is a really solid package, and I'm really happy to own this. I'm sure you've heard of this, but if you haven't checked it out, give it a chance. It is on Netflix, but long live physical media. Next up on the list, and for the letter L, is La Bamba, a title I haven't even opened yet, and I just picked this up for the Criterion sale. I'm really excited to have this film. I was super stoked to hear that Criterion was putting this out. Kind of a surprise, but at the same time, a pleasant one. This is only coming out on Blu-ray. I have a feeling that the studio that owns the rights to this film is probably holding out for the 4K themselves. Considering what Criterion has put together here, this is a really solid package. I love this art. I love this film. The special features on here are great. You have a lot of people coming back to talk about this and a lot of retrospectives, which are awesome. A lot more than I ever expected would even be out there. Prior to this, there was only a Twilight Time version that was out there, so you know your ass missed it. But I'm really happy to own this. If you're a La Bamba fan, what are you waiting for?
Hey, you're the asshole with all the money. Why don't you buy it yourself?
Lahain. Lahan. Lahoo. the beautiful restoration of Spike Lee's Malcolm X, The Manchurian Candidate. The Hughes brothers put gangster rap in film format with Menace to Society. Midnight Cowboy.
Next up for M is the Coen brothers' Miller's Crossing. I feel like this is an often overlooked gem from the Coen brothers catalog. It's a very quiet, small film, a little bit of a gangster tale, and I don't really ever hear too many people talk about this in their catalog when you hear other bigger titles that they're known for. It's got some great performances from Gabriel Byrne and Albert Finney, John Turturro, Steve Buscemi, all the Coen brothers favorites are in here. It's just one of those films that is, I feel like, often overlooked in the gangster genre as well. This movie's got a lot to say and a lot to share, and if you haven't seen this yet, I highly recommend it. Next up is the David Lynch masterpiece, Mulholland Drive.
I'm not sure about this.
This is not the 4K version, unfortunately. It is the Blu-ray. I purchased this almost a month before the 4K was announced. It's one of those things where we've all been there, where we buy a film that we really enjoyed, and then all of a sudden here comes the 4K announcement. I've watched this Blu-ray several times, and I really like how it looks to begin with. I'm sure the 4K is great as well, but this is another mind freak of a film that, in a way, is maybe one of David Lynch's more coherent films. Once you kind of understand what the themes are.
I never talk about themes. It's a very big shame when something is finished and then people want you to translate it back into words.
But if you don't really know what you're getting yourself into on the first watch, it can be a little bit of a head scratcher, but most David Lynch films are. Naomi Watts, outstanding, one of my favorite actresses. She nails this role. Again, another really great digipack from Criterion. I love, again, I've said this several times, I love when they do digipacks, a nice fold-out insert, and usually when you get these digipacks, there's also a really nice thick book, which this one has. And this is a movie that's kind of grown on me over time. The very first time I watched this, I don't think I was even sure that I liked it because it was a little too strange and I didn't really pick up on the messages as much. But then upon revisiting this, I've really grown to really enjoy this, and I've seen it about 3 times now, and I can't wait to see it a 4th. Mulholland Drive, thank you for everything.
My Dinner with Andre. Night of the Hunter. Compelling art house film with excellent cinematography, not another teen movie.
Coming up for O is The Others. Another new release from Criterion that I just picked up at the 50% off Criterion Sale. This is an outstanding film with Nicole Kidman. We did a little bit of coverage on this with the channel, and we hope to do a review of this soon. I actually haven't watched this yet, so I can't comment on what the transfer looks like, but from every review I've read, it sounds like this is an absolute knockout. What a shock that Criterion was putting this out in 4K. This is absolutely beautiful cover art. Nicole Kidman looks absolutely stunning in this painting. A really good, overlooked, atmospheric ghost story that had The Sixth Sense and other films like it not come out at the time. This might have gotten a little bit more shine. This kind of got buried underneath. That's a tragedy because this is an outstanding film. Coming up for P is Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. Probably considered by many his best film, and it is an outstanding film. I think I've used the word outstanding about 100 times now, but this truly is a scary film, a beautiful film, a touching film, a poignant film. It gives you every emotion all at once. I've never been more terrified and intrigued and brought into such a creative fantasy land. This is an adult fairy tale that really propelled him into what he's known for today because of how, I want to say, perfect this film really is. If you haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth, I don't know what you're waiting for. This is not a 4K release from Criterion, but if this ever did come out from them, I would upgrade in a heartbeat.
Persona.
Up next for P is Robert Altman's Hollywood satire, The Player. I really found this film to be very charming, very interesting, and it's a movie about movies and what goes into making them. And given that it's a satire, it's poking fun at Hollywood while also being a movie about the typical Hollywood experience. There are a ton of cameos in here. Everybody that Robert Altman knew in his entire professional life shows up in this movie somewhere. The main star is Tim Robbins, and he's excellent in it as well. A little bit of a mystery thriller kind of film, but mainly this is a love letter to Hollywood while also poking fun at it at the same time, and I had a lot of fun with The Player.
Police Story 1 and 2.
Next up for P is the Rob Reiner classic, A Princess Bride. Who doesn't know A Princess Bride? I feel like at this point you've at least heard of Princess Bride, and I know I say I haven't seen a lot of movies, but I'm assuming everyone watching this has seen A Princess Bride. Now this is the Criterion Blu-ray edition. They have recently put this out in 4K in the exact same package. Now this is a really lovely, beautiful, textured book that opens up. It's got a booklet attached on the inside. You could call this a media book, a digibook perhaps. A really great booklet in here with a few great essays regarding this film. And again, I really love what they did here. They turned this into a storybook, which is perfect for this film. The detailing on here is excellent. I'm sure the 4K is great. For now, I'm going to keep my Blu-ray, but for all you Princess Bride fans out there, let me know if you upgraded. My last P is Punch Drunk Love. The only Paul Thomas Anderson film I own on Blu-ray. I'm really waiting for Magnolia to come out. I really hope Criterion puts that out one day in 4K. I would pick that up in a heartbeat. Same thing with There Will Be Blood. I don't know if that will be a Criterion release, but I hope to see more Paul Thomas Anderson upgrades and 4Ks coming soon. This is a great film, a beautiful love story, and one of 2 Adam Sandler Criterions I have. Funny to say Adam Sandler's on Criterion, but here, lo and behold, here he is. I think this is a great film for him, a great role for him. There's a lot of really great supporting players around him. The love story aspect is very cute. This is a quirky little film. If you haven't seen this before, I highly recommend it. I think there's a lot to like about this movie. The soundtrack is great, the acting is great, the story is very nice and sweet. And if you haven't seen Punch Drunk Love, I highly recommend it. First up for R is Raging Bull. Another Martin Scorsese release, another Criterion from him, and this is a release that I picked up instantly as soon as this was announced in 4K. I hadn't seen this movie at the time, bought it right away, watched it, loved it, couldn't wait to watch it again. The transfer itself in 4K is outstanding. This is a black and white film, if you didn't know that already. The black and white is super detailed, super rich. The blacks are so black and the whites are so white. This movie really blew me away. I'm sure I'm super late to the party and everybody watching this has already seen it, but if you haven't picked this up, this is absolutely a must-own from Criterion.
Repo Man. Repulsion. David Cronenberg's Scanners. Shampoo. Alex Cox's Sid and Nancy. Jonathan Demme's Silence of the Lambs. One of my favorite De Palma flicks, Sisters.
Up next for us is Jonathan Demme's Something Wild. A cute little romance film, maybe a little road trip movie, and maybe part thriller. This stars Jeff Daniels, Melanie Griffith, and one scary Ray Liotta. This is the first movie I ever saw Ray Liotta in, and he is super terrifying. But prior to him showing up, this is actually a fun little cute film until he comes and I crap my pants.
You are really gonna regret this.
Not too much going on this release. There's just a little bit of a small interview with Jonathan Demme and the writer of this film. I wasn't too upset by that. This is a really great little fun film. Again, a nice little romance, little love story. Super happy to pick this up. Super happy to own this. It's really cool that Criterion put this out. I'm not sure if they'll ever put this out in 4K. I'm not sure if I'll ever need this in 4K, but I'm really happy to own this on Blu-ray. If you haven't seen Something Wild, I highly recommend it. Next up for T is Michael Mann's Thief. Starring the incomparable James Caan, this is a movie that I was blown away by after seeing it for the first time a few years ago. I picked this up in the Criterion Sale. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago at this point, and I could not believe that I had not seen this movie up until that point. Talk about an outstanding performance. James Caan is absolutely riveting. The soundtrack in this is mind-blowing. The cinematography, the feel of it, the pace of it, it's so gritty and so realistic as far as the heist elements are concerned. Michael Mann nailed this, James Caan nailed this, and every other person that has anything to do with this film, thank you, God bless you. What an outstanding film. Criterion nailed this release. If this ever came out in 4K, I might definitely be persuaded to pick this up. James Caan, knockout performance, thanks a lot. Thief, can't recommend you enough. Next up for T is Errol Morris's The Thin Blue Line. This is a true crime documentary that came out back in 1988, and if that sounds boring to you, well, guess again. Errol Morris is a genius as far as documentarians are concerned. If he's not somebody you're aware of, definitely check out some of his films. This movie, this documentary, I cannot recommend enough. From the reenactments, the cinematography, the Philip Glass score, this documentary is firing on all cylinders. If you are someone who likes true crime at all, if you're someone who has binge watched all of those Netflix documentaries that pretty much come out a mile a minute these days, you are completely missing out if you don't check out The Thin Blue Line. It's an outstanding story about a man accused of murder who maybe he did, maybe he didn't do it. By the end of this film, there's an outstanding resolution. It really pays off after all the buildup and all of the clues that are poured over and all the different facets of this case about a man who is potentially wrongly convicted. The fact that Criterion put this out maybe goes to tell you what kind of quality we're talking about here. Errol Morris knocked this out of the park. If you've never seen this, at least give it a watch, and maybe then you'll consider picking it up.
Tootsie.
Coming in on the home stretch for yous is The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Not sure how to say that. It's a French film. It's a French word, and I'm not French. But The Umbrellas of Cherbourg charmed my cold, dead heart. I was overwhelmed with the refreshing nature of what this film was. This is a French film from the 1950s that is a musical in the sense that every single word is sung. There isn't a single moment where regular dialogue is spoken. Anytime someone is speaking, it is being sung throughout the whole thing. When that was explained to me, I had no idea what I was getting ready to watch and didn't think that that might even be something I would like at all, but I was completely shocked by how much this movie charmed the pants off me. It is a beautiful film to look at. It is so colorful, and this is only a Blu-ray. If this ever came out in 4K, I would immediately upgrade. I almost didn't buy this because I wanted to wait for the 4K, but I wasn't sure if that would ever happen, and I had to own this, and I had to check it out again. Catherine Deneuve is an absolute knockout and a very poignant love story that is super realistic and true to life. Wonderful music, wonderful visuals. Umbrellas of Cherbourg, thank you for everything. And then last but not least in my Criterion collection, and for the letter U, is Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems. Right.
Another Adam Sandler Criterion, which again is kind of funny to say, but alas, here we are. I was also pretty surprised that Criterion decided to put this out. Initially, this was in their original slate of 4Ks. It was originally going to come out on Blue, but then they decided to give it a little bit extra time and upgrade it to 4K, which I'm so happy they did. I specifically did not even buy this film in the original Blu-ray when it came out because I knew one day someone would put this out in 4K, and that was going to be the release that I wanted. This is another really great digipack that Criterion's putting out. On the inside, you've got Furby jewelry that is showcased in the film. They're very reflective and sort of that ethereal, atmospheric kind of a look and kind of a way that the soundtrack is throughout this movie. This movie is extremely stressful. It sort of grabs you from the beginning and doesn't let go. If you haven't seen this film, be prepared to go on a wild ride. I can't recommend this film enough. This one really took me by surprise. The trailer had me intrigued, but as soon as I saw it, I was blown away, and I knew I was going to pick it up as soon as it was released. So thank you, Criterion, for putting this out in 4K.
Valley of the Dolls. Body horror masterpiece, Videodrome. Body horror masterpiece, Wall-E. When We Were Kings. Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Well, that's it. That's it for our Criterions. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate that you stayed till the end if you did. I know we had a lot to run through there, but let us know if you saw anything that you were really interested in. Let us know if we were missing something that we should own or should check out. What are your favorite Criterion releases? What are you picking up for the Criterion sale? Let us know below. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you soon.